Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Swapnil and this is the next video in our C# learning series. So far we have covered how to install Visual Studio. We have written our first program in C# and learned about variables and data types. In today's video we are going to take the next step and talk about constants and operators in C#. These are the building blocks for performing calculations, comparisons and logic in your programs. Let's dive right in. So in programming we often store values in variables, but sometimes we want the values to never change. That's where the constants come in. So a constant is a variable that whose value is fixed and cannot be changed once assigned. Let's see an example of this in Visual Studio. So here I have already created the console applications for it and have written the code. We'll just uncomment it and I will explain line by line. Here if you see, if we declare like this, like I have declared a double variable called pi with some value, so this becomes a normal variable. If you want to declare a constant variable, we add the const keyword to it, and notice the naming convention. Here it is in uppercase and here it is in Pascal case. So constants are usually written in Pascal case or sometimes in uppercase to indicate that they are constant and have a fixed value. Now let's see what happens if we try to change the value of a constant variable. I will uncomment this. Now as soon as I try to change the value of a constant variable, the compiler throws an error saying the left hand side of an assignment must be a variable property on indexer, but this left side assignment is a constant. That's why we are getting this error. So from this we will get to know that constants are perfect for values that should never change, like the mathematical constants, as in here the pi, or the configuration limits like the max user or some other thing, and also the fixed rates in banks and all. So in that case we use constants. Now let's see the operators. So operators are one of the most important topics in our programming language, and there are multiple types of operators: the arithmetic, assignment, relational, logical, increment, decrement and ternary operator. We'll go one by one. So first one is the arithmetic operator. This is nothing but the basic math operations like how we use in algebra. We'll see an example of this in Visual Studio. Now here what I have done is, let me uncomment this. Now here what I have done is I have declared two variables a and b, both of int data type, and I have assigned 10 to a variable and 3 to b variable. Now here I have performed a set of arithmetic operations like the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division and modulo, and I have used the same a and b variable, and I have, after calculating the results, I have stored in the respective variable and then also printed them using the console statement. Now let's see what we get the result. We will save the program and execute it. Here as you can see, we have got the result of our particular arithmetic statements that we have already written here. So we have the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division and modulo. Modulo is nothing but when we divide something, when we divide a number with another, and the remainder that we get, that is the modulo. In this case it is 1. Now let's move on to the next assignment operator. Assignment operators are usually used for assigning values to the variables. There are many other ways that we can assign values or compare. I'll show you the example of this in Visual Studio one by one. Let's again comment this. Yeah, I'll uncomment this again. Yeah, here you can see I have declared only one variable a of int data type and have assigned 10. So this itself is an assignment where I am assigning the value 10 to a variable. Apart from this, I can even increment this using this shortcut. This is nothing but we can write in normal way. We write it like this, like a is equals to a plus 5. To shorten this, we are just using a plus equals 5. This behaves exactly as this one. Then we have the subtraction which behaves like this, and then the multiplication and the division. Now let's run it so that we can see the values every time we perform the operation. Yeah, here if you see, initially the value was 10. After adding 5 to it became 15. Then we subtracted 3, it became 12. And then we multiplied it by 2, it became 24. And then again we divided by 2, it became again the 12. So this was about assignment operator. Now let's move on to the next operator, which is the relational. I'll again comment this. Now relational operators, they are usually used in a conditional statement where they return a boolean value. It can either be true or false. Let's see an example of these relational operators in Visual Studio. Now, to save time, I have already written the code. I am just explaining here. Yeah, here also I have declared two variables, which is 10 and assigned it to a variable, and then 3 to b. And here I have performed set of other operations. We'll go one by one. I'll save it and we'll run, and then I can explain. Yeah, as relational operators, they return either true or false as their result. So here we are comparing if a is equal b. This is a relational operator. Now if you see, 10 is not equal to 3, so we get a false as the result. Similarly, if we are checking if 10 is not equal to 3, which is true, we get true as the response. And then 10 is obviously not less than 3, that is also correct. And then we are saying a is greater than b, which is 10 is greater than 3, which is true. And then we are saying a is less than or equal to b, which is 10 is not less than or equal to 3, so we are getting false. And then the last one is the a is greater than or equal to b, which is 10 is obviously greater than or equal to 3, so we are getting true as the answer. So this was about the relational operator. Now let's move on to logical operators. Yeah, logical operators are again used in multiple conditions where they are combined and then we get a single output. Let's see an example of this in Visual Studio. I'll comment relational operator code. Yeah, this is the code for logical operator. Yeah, I'll comment this, else we'll see the error. Yeah, I have declared two variables a and b and I have assigned 4 and 7 respectively to them. Now if you see, this is the if block. This we'll discuss regarding if, else and other conditional statements in the next video. As of now, just remember that this is an if, and how this works is it will check the condition whatever is present in this bracket. If this is true, it will enter inside the bracket and then perform whatever is written inside that. If this particular statement is false, it won't enter inside and it won't execute whatever code is present in these two brackets. So this is about the if one. Now if you check, if we have assigned a to 4 value and 7 to b. Now if we check here, a is greater than 5, like 4 is not greater than 5, so this one becomes false. and b is less than 10, which is 7 is less than 10. So this becomes true, which means we get, I'll comment this, which we get false ampersand true. So we know that for this particular operator we need both conditions to be true in order to get the end result as true. But here, as this particular value is false, so the end result will be false. So now the end result is false, so if condition won't enter inside the scope and it goes outside, and whatever the code is present below the if condition, that will be executed. So in this case we don't have any code for this particular if. Then we'll move on to the next OR condition. So this is nothing but, here also again we are checking if 4 is greater than 5. Now 4 is not greater than 5. We will get again false here, and we are using OR operator. This is the AND operator, ampersand, and these two pipe symbols are for OR operator. And again we are checking b is less than 10, like 7 is less than 10. Yeah, this is true, so we'll get true. And in case of OR operator, either of these two values, if any one value is true, the end result will be true. So now for this particular if condition, the end result is true, which means it enters the block and whatever the code is present inside that block will be executed. Next is the negation operator, which comes under the logical one, and here we are checking if a is less than 10. Now 4 is not 4 is less than 10, which means we get true as the response, which is true. But then we have a negation on this particular statement. So now what negation does is, whatever the result that we have inside this particular condition, for this condition, it flips it. Now if we get a true as the response, it flips it and makes it as false. Now if the inside condition was false, it will flip it to true. So in this case the inside condition is already true, so it will flip it to false and the end result will be false. Now the condition for this particular if statement is false, so it doesn't enter inside the scope and it executes whatever is present outside of the scope. So this was about the logical operators. Now we'll move on to increment and decrement operators. I'll comment this. So increment and decrement operators are nothing but we add one or subtract one from a particular variable. These are usually used in loops. We'll go to loops in some other video. Now we'll check an example of this in Visual Studio. Yeah, I'll uncomment this. Yeah, here if you see, yeah, okay, yeah, here if you see, I have declared two variables x and y and I have assigned 5 and 7 to them, and these are all the increment and decrement operators. Here if you see, I have added plus before the variable. This means it's a pre-increment. What it does is, if you see, we have the 5 value, so in this case it pre-increments it, like it adds 1 and then prints the value. Like if we have 5 here, it will be like 5 plus 1 6, and then 6 is printed here. And moving on to post increment, what post increment does is, it will check the value for x, which is 5, but then here it became 6. So now the new value for x is 6. So it will check 6 and have added plus after the variable. So this is called post increment. So what it does is, it first prints the latest value and then increments it. Now here the value for x was 5 and then I have done pre-increment, then due to this x value became 6. Now it will print 6 and then increment it. So on the next line when I try to print, here I will get the 7 as the answer for x variable. Now the same is the case for y variable, where I am using the decrement operator. I am here using the pre-decrement. So we have 7 as the value for y, and if I do pre-decrement, the value here for this line will be printed as 6, and then I am using the post decrement. So now the value was 6, here we will get 6 as the answer, but then it decrements it and takes it to 5, and when this line gets executed, we get 5 as the answer. Now let's see after executing it if whatever I said was the right answer. Yeah, here if you see, initially the value for x was 5 and then we pre-incremented it, so we got the pre-incremented value which is 6, and then here we get the same result, but then it increments it later after printing. So we get the old value 6, and then on the next line when I am trying to print the same x value without any pre-increment or post increment, we get the post incremented value which is 7. Now the same is the case for pre-decrement. Initially the value for y was 7. We did a pre-decrement, so it decreases the value and then prints it directly. So we have 6 as the value. Now in post decrement, it prints the same value and then does the decrement. So we have the 6 value and then it decrements it to 5, and on the next line if we try to print it, we get the post decremented value which is 5. So this was about increment and decrement operators in C#. Now we will move on to the last operator, the ternary operator. So ternary operator is nothing but a shorthand for if-else logic. We will discuss if-else in next video. I will be uploading it soon. Now let's see an example of ternary operator in Visual Studio. I will comment this. Yeah. Now ternary operator. Let me uncomment this. So how ternary operator works is, we have a condition. If this condition is true, then whatever is present after the question mark will be executed. In this case it is adult, and if this particular condition is false, then whatever is present after the colon will be executed. So if you see, I have given age as 16 and I am storing the end result into a string data type variable which has the name result. So this is the condition, age is greater than or equal to 18. So age is nothing but 16. So 16 is obviously not greater than 18. So in this case this condition is false. So it goes to the second condition and this will be stored in the result variable. Now let's print it to confirm. Yeah, as you can see, this condition was false, so it went to the next statement and stored the value of minor into the result, and we are getting the same on the console. Now let's modify this code and let's make it 20 now. Now if we check, this condition holds true because 20 is greater than 18. So in this case, as this condition is true, then the first value, which is the adult, this will be stored in the result. Now let's save the program and run it again. Yeah, now if you see, we are getting adult as the answer in the console. So this was about the ternary operator. Now let's quickly recap what all we have learnt. So first we learnt about constants, which are the fixed values. Then we explored about the operators, the arithmetic operators, the assignment operator, the relational operator, the logical operator, increment decrement operators, and lastly the ternary operator. So these concepts are going to be the foundation for decision making and control flow in our upcoming videos. In the next video we shall learn about the control statements in C#, We shall learn how to make decision in code using the if else, nested if and the switch statement. This is where your program will start becoming dynamic and smart, reacting differently based on the input or conditions. So make sure you don't miss that. And if you found this particular video helpful, hit that like button and share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video where we'll make our code start to think. Thank you.